Hello, greetings to you all, and you are very welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda here on Civic Space TV, and I am Philip Molisa. On this episode, we are discussing urbanization, we are discussing urban growth and expansion in the Republic of Uganda, and we are interrogating this continuing desire to create new cities and going downwards municipalities and town councils in this beautiful country, and we want to assess its impact on our society, but also our capacity to, first of all, manage and sustain these new areas of governance that we keep on creating as a country. And of course, we have a backdrop of, I think there was 2019 when cabinet sat and they agreed that they need to create about 15 cities in this country. And since then, we've seen the cities starting to be operationalized, and we know that government said they're going to do it in a phased manner. They started with supporting about 3 of them and pushed the number to 7, and it continues to be pushed until they acquire the goal of 15 cities. And the people I have here will help me understand, first of all, the need for these cities and their ability to operate to the standard they are supposed to operate, but also looking at some of the challenges that exist and how we can derive solutions to make sure they actually function efficiently and indeed they serve the people of those particular areas. Now, joining me on that discussion is a panel of distinguished citizens of this country, Uganda, who are in the different cities, but also in the country, looking at how all this is unfolding. And I will briefly introduce them, but also ask come out and say hello to us before we can proceed with the conversation. And I'll start with you, Michael Mwenye. Mwenye is the district planner from Manafwa district. Michael, greetings, welcome to the conversation. And how is Manafwa doing?
Yeah, thank you, Philip. My name, as he rightly mentioned, I am Michael Mwenye. Unfortunately, I left Manafa. I'm no longer working with Manafa. So my brother, I think, forgot to update that, but that was very recent. Yeah, so currently I'm working with the Capital Markets Authority, but still in the same planning fund.
Thank you so much for joining us, Michael. It's a pleasure having you here, and certainly we can't wait to hear what you share with us in this discussion about, especially you, the planners. You know well how these things are supposed to be done. You create for us templates of how we are supposed to be moving, and indeed looking at how we can fit in them to see that the design is actually respected going forward. I too have Council Alobo Solomon Joyce. Council, greetings, welcome to the conversation, and how is where you are?
My name is Alobo Solomon Joyce. Somewhere in the outskirts of Wakiso, and here we're doing quite okay, and I'm glad to be on the platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are happy to have you, and indeed we shall enjoy hearing from you and what you have to share about this particular conversation that we have here today. And next is Wanchi Nasuru. Nasuru is the Deputy Mayor from the Northern Division of Mbale City. Nasuru, greetings, welcome to the conversation, and how is Mbale City doing this morning?
Good morning to Philip. Good morning to all colleagues and our viewers and listeners. You have just said Wachi Nasuru is my name, Deputy Mayor, Northern State Division. Mbale is doing well. We are blessed with some good rain this morning, and as well elections of the division council has also taking place at the same time. And so far, they are so good. We haven't heard of issues here and there. We pray that by the end of the day, everything moves on normally.
Thank you so much, Nasuru, for joining us, and indeed we shall enjoy hearing from what you share as far as how Mbale City is being managed, and indeed if actually it was a good idea to promote or grow it into a city. You know, it was a municipality not so long ago, and certainly you will tell us the differences from when it was made a city, and whether other places should continue advocating to be elevated to that status. And last but not least, I have a journalist here with us, and that is Miss Buule Doreen. Doreen, greetings. Welcome to the conversation, and how is where you are?
Thank you very much, Melissa. Well, I'm very happy to be on this call today to just discuss about urban expansion. My name is Vule Doreen, and I'm glad. Let's dive in.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Doreen, and we're equally glad to have you here. And certainly, we are eagerly waiting to see what we can get out of you in this conversation. And permit me start with you, Michael, because you're in the planning department, and indeed you are the people that create the template on which we should be fitting as people who are seeking to grow, to advance, to get to these different levels of governance and leadership in our country. And certainly so, when the citizens of Uganda, looking within and outside, looking at what people call cities and municipalities and the other areas of governance that exist world over, what is the idea behind the creation of cities from the planning side? I know there is a lot of politics involved in the governance, but from the planning, the technical aspect, what do you look at as planners for you to say, okay, this area deserves to now be elevated to this new status? And certainly when you are designing the different plans and indeed considering what should be where in these places, what is at the back of the mind? And perhaps is it just something done in the offices, or even actually the people on the ground are consulted to see if that is they seek to get for their areas? Yes, Michael, let me start with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. An idea of coming up with a city ideally should depend on many factors. And of course, we all recall when government came up with such ideas, looking at the Vision 2030, I mean, trying to ensure that we come up with several urban cities to deliver services of high standard to the population. But as you rightly said, that we must have key components that we look at before declaring a certain town a city. And this is where I would request that we base on for us to start assessing or evaluate whether some decisions we took were actually right or wrong. Because right now, we have cities in Uganda that have never changed since they were declared cities. I think you and I have to agree on that. So there are quite a number of things, and the most important one is actually population. Right now, a number of scholars have always guided that we should look at around 500,000 people, and actually a minimum of 500,000 people in terms of population. And when you look at most of these urban settings, we are there. They are populated. When you look at our own city, where I come from, Bali, yes, we have quite a number of people. Kampala has surpassed. We are now looking at almost 6 million Ugandans and quite a number. There are cities like Hoima that I'm not sure whether actually raise 600,000 people. I have not been placed to look at the recent population of that city, but there are other factors that actually guided that decision for government to declare most of them. So, as rightly said, population is something very, very important. Two, from the planning perspective, is now the resources. Because, for us planners, it's all about resource allocation. Because we have to cook, but for you to cook, you must make sure that you get inputs. You've gone for matoke, you must make sure that there is firewood in place. You must make sure that you have a cook that's going to prepare that particular food. Resource allocation is very important. So we are looking at the ability of that town being able to raise resources that can actually run that city independently or with minimal support from government. This is the question we must be asking ourselves. Are all cities declared in Uganda have that capacity to do? We've seen how cities are lingering with minimal resources. Most of the cities are raising less than 10% of own generated revenue, and highly depending on government transfers. So those are the questions we must ask. The question of resources is very, very important. Are we able to raise money to run the city as it's supposed to be, run? And then we can't ignore, urban infrastructure. And, we all know what defines an urban infrastructure. So let's look at also most of the cities, Mbali, Arua, Gulu. These have been most of the regional business centers. So they rightly qualify to become cities depending on that factor. But you would go ahead and start asking yourself, what of others? Others like Hoima, I think there was a question of maybe oil. Look at Fort Portal, question of tourism we need. Jinja, and then Masaka. You know what happened with Masaka City, where even the Kabaka had to write. So the question is, when we are creating these cities, are we really looking at those key factors that we must consider? Because the number is huge. By 2026, we're supposed to have 16 cities, but can we start assessing how they are performing right now? I am happy we have a mayor from Bali here that will actually give us more information. So infrastructure is very important. We don't need to have a city where we don't have good roads. Come from Bali, and for those in Bali know what is happening. I'm not talking about the capital. We must also look at the markets. This government has come up with a program where we've constructed quite a number of markets in all these urban cities and regional centers. Then public utilities, do we have water, electricity, most of the things that actually make a city to really look like a city. Hospitals, facilities. So those are things. You're not going to wake up and declare Manaf as a district, as a city. I mean, this is the rural setting, it lacks most of these facilities. So you can't declare such a place as a city. And then, of course, I'm not going to forget about the administrative and institutional capacity. That is very important. The city has to be run by experts, quite a number of staff on board. You have facilities that are able to coordinate. I mean, when you're talking about a city, it involves a lot of things. Just mobilizing local revenue is not easy. You need quite a number of staff on board. So are we really well equipped in terms of administrative and institution-wise to ensure that we run a city? Something that we must look at. And then I'm going to conclude with the economic base. This is very important. Let's look at Mbala as a city in terms of economically. How can we be able to contribute to this country's GDP as Mbala for us to qualify as a city? The question, we have a border. That's one thing. Yeah, at least we all appreciate that most of goods that are exported to this country go through some of the borders in the eastern Uganda from Kenya. So that is also a component, yeah, that we must look at as we focus on how best we can come up with cities that are actually working for people and able to deliver service that we expected from them at that point. Things like legal and political, that is the structure of this country, and I really don't think that I need to go into that. Otherwise, a city should really look like a city. That is my emphasis. It should look like a city, and we must be able to position ourselves to be able to offer a service deserved to people, because someone is going to come from US excited to visit Mbale City, for example, okay? So what are they going to get on the ground? A city or something that looks like a city? Some of us, I have been blessed to travel to some few cities around outside Uganda. I have been to Sejong, Sejong, that is South Korea. That is a new administrative city. And when you reach some places, you appreciate that this is what it is. The question all of us must be asking ourselves, since cities were declared, which one can we comfortably call a city at the moment?
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for that. And you do a very, very good job in taking us to the planning side, and indeed the considerations that should be made therein to consider a place to be upgraded to city status, or even what would be required to keep them at the lower standard. And Nasuru, this brings me to you. I want to hear from the experience of Mbale City, because you have been there, and you benefited from this policy of government of elevating these different places in the various regions to city status. What has the performance been like, and indeed what sort of differences are noticeable from the time you were a municipality to now that you were a city? And would you say that it was a very, very correct decision for government to select Mbale to be upgraded to city status? Yes, Nasuru. One more time, Mr. Wanche Nasuru, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Mr. Philip, I think it was a network problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Philip, and my other panelists. I want to first appreciate the words that have just been said with my brother, the planner, that realistically what he has said, is perfect. But there is a question that we should all ask ourselves, that before all this happening, who is in position to give these answers before an action is taken or implemented? As far as Amidst is standing, as you have just said, Amidst deserved to have a city. And on that note, I appreciate the government for the efforts and the decision taken to include Mbale among the fastest that were upgraded. But however, the issue of giving us a city does not only look at the government personalities, because we are all government, but looks at us who are on the grassroots as the key stakeholders. As planner said, we look at the issues of available resources or the economic base. When you look at Amidst in particular, the fact remains that we have a strong economic base of our local revenue. But it's we, the residents of Amidst ourselves, that are failing to have this revenue put on board. Because as we may all be aware, government sends us a token of different revenues. We have what we call DDG, then we have what we also call non-wage for our technical staff. But much of the money that has to develop the city or to develop our towns is local revenue. That what you have. My brother talked of market areas where we are lucky that we have one of the biggest markets in the country. We also have other ordinary markets around. We have serious street parking, off-roading, and other revenue utilities. But the question is, how much are we raising from this revenue? Because to give just, for example, like my own division where I am, you find that in one financial year, we always project to around 1.8 billion. But the action that we got for the last financial year was around 800 million. But when you look at what may have been the problem is within us, the residents of the city and the technical staff of the city, that most of the money is lost in the field even before it reaches to the systems. So when you look at the human resource, the human resource is currently available, though it may not be enough, but what is available, to what extent has it done? So for the case of Amidst, we appreciate the quiz to make Amidst one of the cities around, and we are trying our level best. However, government also needed to look at some integrities. For instance, before coming to the city, planner can even give that clarification maybe later or knows better about that. All our sub-counties, for example, Amidst is made up of 12 former sub-counties of Mbale district. So out of 12 sub-counties, each district was receiving a grant called road fund, and depending on their IPFs. But for example, my own sub-county was getting around 11 million. Then today, when you look at the city, putting one side a billion shilling they are sent to every district in Uganda, our road fund alone does not even go beyond 10 million. Then now the question goes, where has this money gone yet? 12 sub-counties were receiving a road fund, which is even more than 500 million. And each sub-county was receiving DEG. Today, my own division is receiving DEG of 198 million. Industrial division is receiving less because Northern receives more than that. When you total up the DEG money, which is even helping us to do most of the project, and not even make 500. But if we are to go back to the initial program of the sub-counties, our anticipation was that the money that was being shared in these sub-counties would be totaled up together to make up the division fund, such that we could give services to the people. But as I talk now, issues of roads are the problem, because we have more than, not just more than, but more than enough. That the money that we have is not doing anything. When you look at the road works equipment, surely we don't have. It is just of late that we used our local revenue and procured one that is just trying. But when you look at the energies that are needed to have our roads done, one machine can't be enough. Alongside the little money we are getting, that we're only just doing paving, but we cannot even provide malaming. So to me, and as of now, I think government should not think more of adding in more cities and municipalities if it has not aligned these ones that have already been established. When issues are too much and there are still more, and then you think of doing more, another one. But also, I want us to call upon the other fellow leaders and colleagues, Balest as well, and even other places. Because as the plan said, I've also gotten a chance to be in Sorot City, Jinja City, Arua City. But when you look at all these cities that were created, you'll find that some other cities are doing better than the other. For instance, when you get to Arua, there is a very big difference. When you go to Guru, there is a very big difference compared to the one of Jinja, Sorot, and the one of Bali. So now such inequalities which are there gets back onto us leaders to have collective effort and government as well and see why is Guru City developing faster than the one of Mbale, yet they were all given the status at the same time. And that answer lies onto government, the policymakers at the top, and us on ground. Once we improve on the economic base of our local collections, then it can give government more chance and more hope to know that once they decentralize and make more cities, life will be far much.
Thank you, Nasura, and you give us good lessons from Mbale City, and indeed what has worked, and you say you appreciate the fact that government considered Mbale as one of the cities to be put up, but you say there are still challenges, and one of them you stick to is the one of the road fund, and indeed the realization that actually government is unable to provide enough money for upgrading, maintaining, and indeed construction of new roads, and that is a serious challenge. Michael here told us earlier that one of the things they should always look at in creating a new city is infrastructure, and certainly that creates a mismatch from planning to what actually is on ground. And I want to hear from you, Joyce. Look, and you mentioned you are in Wakiso, and we know it is one of the areas that have been agitating for city status for a very long time. And our government was saying that, oh, actually, we can just absorb you in Kampala and create something called the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area, which should include Wakiso, BG, Mokono, and some of the other surrounding areas. But I want to hear from you. In the people who are also asking for city status, but also looking at what is present at the moment, looking at Kampala, and I know there is always a lot of talk around congestion, again around the infrastructure, the money is always here, the Lord Mayor, the executive director, the different centers of power complaining about the resources, and we have understood now that the resources are important. Do you think we should continue creating new cities and indeed not just in the central but across the country, or actually it would be better government to prioritize upgrading or making sure the existing ones are able to function effectively? Which one should we go and drawing from the lessons of Wakiso and Kampala, where I think you operate most? Yes, Joyce.
Thank you very much, Philip. Don't agree with Mr. Michael. Let us first, but the cities we have right now, when we look at them, where by the time they were given the city status, were they worthy of the city status already by the time they gave it to them? So I think we should first, before we create more cities, let's make sure the cities we're giving the status are up to they deserve the status that they're going to be given. Because you look at the situation where you're graduating a place to a city status when it's still at probably a district level. Now you've given it a status. Now the challenge is you have to build it up to the city level, to the status that you've given it. The priority should have been for if it's the population. I'm sure most of the cities already have the population that is there right now. When we look at the local government acts that talks about the urbanization, it also gives a list of things that should be met before a municipality or a city is given its status. We look at, Mr. Michael talked about, we looked at the population, of which most times the population is okay, but beyond the population, we have other things like the infrastructure that you also talked about. Do they have the infrastructures that would make it to deserve the city status? Is it having the hospitals? Is it having the roads, the good roads? I stay in the outskirts of Wakiso, like I said. But before if I'm to leave home and reach where I am going, by the time I reach a tarmac road, I am fully covered in dust. Now, if we're requesting for a city status, but we still have issues where the road is terrible, for you to reach a tarmac road, you're spending like 1 hour on a road that you're ideally supposed to spend like 30 minutes at most. Let's first develop the infrastructures. Let's develop the hospitals, the roads, before we give it the status. Let's take the place to a city status. Let it look like a city before it is called a city. Because if we give it a city status, then we're trying to, okay, now let's work on the roads, let's work on the hospitals, let's work on the waste management. We had the Chitezi incident that happened where a lot of people lost their lives. Sometimes I actually pass that road, and when you look at the heap of rubbish that is still there from afar, like that incident just died down. Maybe they're still working on it right now, but we should first work on that. Let us prioritize. Get back to the people. Ask them, what challenges are we facing in this area that is hindering us from becoming a city? If we don't have the roads, let us work on the roads. If we don't have the hospitals, let us get a good hospital. If we don't have proper waste management, how can we work on that waste management? If we don't have proper water supply, where I stay, we have national water, but it comes like once a month. Now that's I don't think that is something that should be happening in a city. There should be constant water supply. There should be proper waste management. Otherwise, we're going to keep creating more cities that are more like villages. They don't have the water. They don't have actually, they don't have the proper infrastructure to enable it to operate in terms of a city. And most times we create the cities, we give it a city status when we don't even have where the infra, like the buildings where the offices are going to be, the administrative bit of it. You're creating a city status, you're going to need the town clerks, you're going to need the RCC, but you have not yet put for them where to sit. You have not built enough offices within the district headquarters. When we go back to the local government act, I think about section 4 there, it says a city is having the same it's equivalent to a district. Now, if it's equivalent, if a city is equivalent to a district, let it first operate at the district level, but when you are building its infrastructure, to make it to a city level before you give it the city status. Otherwise, we're going to have, when you hear a place like, okay, we have Wakiso City, but when you go to Wakiso City, it's not giving you the city feel of it. You don't feel the city side of it. So we should concentrate more on making that place look like a city. Like Mr. Michael Mwini said, let's concentrate on making that place look like a city before it can be given a city status. So that's my
All right. Thank you, Joyce, for that. And you raise fundamental issues there. And Doreen, you move around quite a bit, and certainly you've been monitoring some of the things that keep happening in our country. When you listen to the other people on this panel here, you realize actually things are not okay in these areas. And I want to hear from you, first of all, from someone who is exposed to information day in, day out. What is the inspiration from the side of government in continuing to create these new cities, creating the new municipalities, bigger administrative units, and certainly what lessons have we learned or not learned from the past experiences of creating these places, and we end up having them not very well functional, like the mayor from Bali has told us, like the planner has told us, and you've had Joyce saying the same thing. Yes, story.
Very interesting debate. From where I have gone, from what I have seen, from what I've heard, I don't think the population that keeps demanding for cities understands what a city is supposed to look like or what it's supposed to be. So, and also we should also take note of the timing within which these city conversations come by, because they usually come towards a political heated time where the few that are looking for elective positions go fire up a population deep down in the village, which without sensitization, without them knowing what exactly this city status is going to do to them, and then they mount up a bit of pressure so that the government can respond. The one thing that we should really look into is the ulterior motives of actually creating these cities. We can actually trace back to how we started creating districts, because that was the same thing. We created districts until there were too many, and now we are starting with the cities again. So it's just amount of just trying to find something that people will ride with, and then create whatever opportunities that without sensitization, without a bit of mobilization or education of what cities look like or what they're supposed to be, and people create the pressure for government to respond. Now, when you look at the cohort that is supposed to go next, we have Entebbe, Wakiso, Kabale, Moroto, and Nakasongola. If you've gone to Nakasongola, the town of Nakasongola, you would wonder why they want to create it a city. Why do they want to promote it into a city? When you look at Moroto, for example, good infrastructure, only especially with the roads. There's a road that takes you there and brings you back to other places. But Moroto itself as a town, why are we promoting Moroto into a city? So in short, it's just, these are political incentives. We should just say these are political incentives that when a child cries too much to the father is like, okay, just to get these people off my back, let me give them what they want. But we should just be taking lessons of what we have already done. The cities that have been upgraded so far are something that is a great lesson for us to learn from, what we could do better and what we couldn't do better. And the other thing that I wanted to comment on, especially with what Michael said about planning, is people do not know when to start planning so that their towns can become cities. Because we have a land act, or we have a land law which is not yet ingrained in people's minds. People buy anywhere, construct anyhow, and then a few years into the future, they want to turn it into a city, and people are looking at, this is my piece of land, I've been owning it for 100 years, or my ancestors have been here, and the compensation is low. I am residing in a place around Terere, and people have constructed their own way, blocking drainage systems to the point that even if they wanted to replan for this place, they would have to demolish everything that is in this place. So it's just a matter of really looking into the reasons why people want cities. Are they educated enough? What Michael said about why a place can become a city is not common knowledge to people. People just look at, okay, our MP is advocating for a city status, and this is why we want a city status. So they will tell them, you're going to get, we are going to develop, this place is going to grow, you will have jobs. Then, of course, when they say you're going to grow, they expect that they will start having some money. And some people have, over time, abandoned what they do to look at the city status, because when the city comes, it will be like Kampala. And we have seen, as time has gone on, that even Kampala still needs a bit of improvement. So it's not about time for us to release the next cohort of cities. I think the government should do us a bit of justice for once and look at exactly what we are looking at. The underdevelopment of all these towns that they want to promote into cities is very evident and vivid. Everyone can see. Let's first work on a few things, especially the drainage system. Let the district planners be able to plan the districts before they are turned into cities. And also let's try to get the governance straight, because I had what she's saying about Gulu and Arua. Gulu and Arua are different because their leadership must account, even when there's a bit of sipping through a bit of corruption here and there, but they are a little bit, that's why they say when you find a policeman who is from the north, they are very hard to give something. So they take that character on even with their own developments. So let's try to work on the governance. If the district planners can work hand in hand with the different technical teams that plan their districts, where the schools are going to be, the business centers and all the other areas, then we shall have a district which is well planned that can actually be promoted into a city. But before we actually have a satisfactory town, please, let's not add on more cities, because we have seen all these cities that have come out recently, they are failing. Yeah, we are not 100% proud of the cities that we demanded for initially. I demanded for Mbale City, but when I walk past the market area where the garbage is on the road, and I'm like, why is MCF here? Why do we have a city? So let's work on those and then we can go to the next.
Thank you, Doreen, for that. And you put it so well. But one of the things you raised is the question of governance, and more to that shall be discussed as we continue the conversation. And we are still on Community Voices Uganda, and today we are discussing urbanization. We are discussing the cities and as whether they are actual cities and whether they are serving the people of those particular locations. And Mike, I want to come back to you. One of the things that happens in this country is that things happen organically, and one of the things that happen is a settlement. I know Doreen here has talked about settlement. You realize people get to move from place to place, do constructions, do set up farms, even the big buildings we see around town. There is often limited regulation and guidance on how the constructions should happen. And before we know it, you have flooding, you have narrow roads, you don't have gazetted areas for social public infrastructure and so on. And I want to hear from you as a planner. First of all, when do we plan as you people are part of this institution of governance? When do we plan, but true, do we have strategic plans that flow through for, say, 20, 50, 100 years, so that even when someone is acquiring land, they know that government is planning to have, for example, this road expanded in the next 20 years, so I should not construct up to this place, and maybe there is a plan to construct a hospital there. What sort of planning do we have, and indeed, when you develop these plans, where do you put them so that citizens can access them and they have this knowledge and they don't have to mix things up and we end up not being able to improve our spaces in the future?
Yeah, thank you so much, Philip. You know, the reason why I was laughing is the fact that you've just hinted on what my sister has just concluded with. There is a problem that we have as a country, honestly speaking. Right now, if we are to do a survey just on ground and try to appreciate how many cities that were approved or were declared cities with unapproved physical plan, that is the question to start with. I have worked with Manaf, and you have no idea how we have struggled to come up with physical plans for our urban centers, town councils that are just very small. Because coming up with a physical plan entails a lot. And unfortunately, we had not given it, I think, a much focus. The question is, how many were declared cities? I am not mistaken, very few. And that's why Bali was a municipality. And we all know what happened. Some of the sub-counties were not part of the municipalities. They were doing their own things. Now, you bring many sub-counties on board to form the city. where people have their land, they have constructed anyhow they want. You cannot, in fact, what we expect right now is now to come up with a master fiscal plan for a city like for 50 years and try to come on board and say, look, this is how we are going to develop this time. This is how we want it to look like. We are going to put schools here. We are going to put roads here, so that if you have people who have constructed in those particular areas, you start planning for them how to compensate them with time and ensure that you achieve what you want. If this was done earlier, before even coming up with cities, it would be a different question. I might ask, the discussion of cities, how long did it take to come up with these cities? You know what happened? My sister Bwele was very clear. 2020, we were eyeing another political season. You know how it rained very fast. And boom, we had cities. We are talking about Nakasongola. Do we have a master fiscal plan for Nakasongola right now? So these are challenges that comes on board, that even if you look at Mbali City, they might be having a lot of things to achieve. There are these challenges that you can't just wake up and you think you're breaking the bottlenecks that we have in place. Right now, compensating someone in Mbali costs a lot of money. Are you going to prioritize that when you have roads that are already existing that you want to work on for citizens to enjoy? So we are going to have a city, but with a lot of challenges. Yeah. So the issue of master plan, and of course there was a proposal where we thought, you know, World Bank would come in to see how they can sponsor different cities to come up with master plans that will take us time. That has not materialized right now. They're still focusing on USMID, the money they give us to work on these roads and all that.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael, for that. And it's important you give us that detail. And Nasur, again, I want to hear from you. You see, when we look around this, we realize that the challenges come back to the resource, the money that is supposed to make some of these activities done. And whereas we have government, and you spoke about local revenue, what other forms of financing do you look at as a city? And excuse me, I know there could be limitations in terms of the law on how much you can mobilize from where, but what other modes of financing do you look at as a city to make sure you can deliver the services you have to deliver to your people? Because in the end, they vote you into office and they expect these services with or without money from government.
Thank you. I appreciate what my fellow panelists are also submitting. And when you look at all the submissions, you find that this is a two-way traffic, that government has a role to play, and the citizen on the ground also have a role to play. So it is a two-way traffic. But however, as you have just posed the question on to me, we major receive major, it is 2 grants that we receive from government and maybe other agents. So government in every financial year, it releases 1 billion shilling to all local governments and even cities inclusive, purposely for road fund. Then it also releases money called non-wage, but I don't want to discuss about non-wage because that is majorly for day-to-day running of our civil servants, so that one can't be attached to infrastructure or to projects into a city or a district. Then the other one that we receive is called the DGE. It's a discretionary government grant. This grant comes along with strings attached. So to me, I understand like someone who is in the system, I don't want to look at government so much, but I want to look at what we receive. What's the impact of what we receive? Like my sister Bure said, the issue is all about governance, the leadership of the area. Because now me as the deputy mayor of Northern, I have a budget that I run, and this budget has been budgeted according to the resources that I'm getting. But at the end of the financial year, can I make accountability over my own budget? What are the resources that have been received? What have been received or not? So with all what we receive, I can't say it is enough, but let's first look at the impact of what we are receiving. 1 billion, of what impact has it done as far as the roads are concerned? How many bridges have been worked on? But I know that this man ends into the pocket of a few people and don't find a showcase on the ground. You look at a conditional grant coming, someone says you're going to fence a school, but really, how do you attach 100 million? You are getting to 199. You carry 100 million onto a fencing of one school. what's the impact of one school to the population of the people that you are leading or to the community that you are serving. So there is a lot that needs to be done that calls for me as a person, calls for other stakeholders on the ground to see that we first convince government that even if we are receiving less, but this is what you have so far managed. Not like what my sister said about garbage management. Does not need central government to come in. Does not need money from the center. Let's use the available resources. Let's show the citizen, the taxpayer, that what your money is doing is worth it. Now, like I gave you an example that of recently procured a machine, a grader for our city. It is now easy to go and convince a taxpayer that here we have used your money to procure a grader, and this grader is going to work on roads. Now, what they're expecting to see is now a change in working on the roads. If roads are worked on, it is easy to go back to a shop tomorrow. You either even increase on the tax because there is easy accessibility to that shop where you are raising a tax. So what government is giving us, I know it is not enough, like any other person can also submit it, but I still want us to first rely on to what we have. But the only challenge that we have with government majorly for now is the administration system of managing taxes. Right now, I don't know what is happening in other towns, but for us, we are on the system called e-grave. Previously on the system called IRAS, where you generate a PRN number for the taxpayer, and the taxpayer pays directly, and that money goes to URA, to our Minister of Finance. Then it is resent back after the end of the month. But now where the challenge comes in, you'll find a system, it is telling you that you have collected around 100 million, for example, for this month of August. In September, you expect to get 100 million, they first send you 30 million. That 30 million comes, a lot is demanding. At the end of the day, you find that you are collecting a lot of money, but you are getting money in bits. So now the question, we wonder, where does this money go? Where is this money reserved before it gets back? So by the time it gets back, you find that a lot has been done, a lot has happened. So even what they send back almost becomes useless or becomes less compared to the needs that we have as leaders and as community at the same time. So my
Yes,
prayer would be,
thank you. And Nasur, before I let you go on that specific one, you see, one of the
yes,
comments that again rise from that one is that when you people are budgeting, you seem to be, you budget, yes, for your salaries, you budget for your allowances, you budget for conferences where you get per diem, and little attention you put to things that actually create real impact and improving the standards of living of the people in your communities. And I want to hear from you, especially the experience from Bali, that interaction between where the people in charge of the budgets are actually just looking at what delivers for them as individuals, as opposed to faster improving the community as a whole. Yes, please comment on that quite briefly. And I can see, yes, Michael here has a quick comment to make.
okay, thank you. When you look at the budgeting process actually is initiated by the technical staff. They bring to the executive. That's how the budgeting process is all about. It begins with the budget conferences. So in this case, when you look at what you're trying to say, we don't budget exactly as you have just said that conferences, our allowances. No. As local revenue is designed, we have percentages. Same case to government units. There is a percentage for this, a percentage for that. So when the money comes, you look at the appropriation of how you made your percentages. 10% for this, 2% for this, 3%. But now, as I've just said on the system of revenue management, you have received 30 million, yet in your planned expenditure in the budget is saying.
Okay, thank you, Nasuro, for that. I appreciate that. And yes, Michael, I saw, I think you had a quick comment to make. If you can make it before I come to Joyce here.
Yeah, what I wanted to supplement, ideally, one, I appreciate my brother Nasuru because he's very informed, you know, having led the city division for some good time. I think the law is very clear on the resource allocation. That's very important. One of the things that we expected when the government declared the cities was the enhancement on revenue. Why? Yes, as we appreciate that there are challenges because these cities don't have enough structures to mobilize as much revenue as we would expect, government also come in handy to ensure that supports these cities more than we can even think. Because the question is, if you take away the 1 billion for roads, by the way, if you come to Manafa, we have very good roads because of 1 billion. The way he has said, but the cities have been abandoned. The resources that is coming in for these roads is not actually just enough. Now, what I wanted to say, and this is very important, the reason why we don't prepare our citizens to appreciate what a city is the fact that the city comes with its own conditions. The taxes you have been paying in a municipality changes when it comes to city. Are citizens ready to actually, are they ready to start that kind of journey of supporting their own development of a city? That is the only question we must have. But the resources we are getting are not enough. He's mentioning DDG. If you look at what urban centers get in terms of DDG, not compared to the districts. And there is also a genesis of that DDG. We should actually come up with a very different grant for county council, for cities, a very different grant for cities, where government focuses. Well, and by the way, this does not only rotate around the cities. If I ask you right now, from the capital city, which road are you comfortable right now that you use for a particular city? Do we have any two-way road? How long does it take? From Valley to Kampala is around 200, I think around 200 kilometers. But on average, you're using 6 hours. 200 kilometers on 100 kilometers per hour. It's supposed to be around 2 to 3 hours. But here you're using 6 hours. So when it comes for us to appreciate the development of the city, we shouldn't even just focus on the city itself, but we must also focus on the infrastructures that actually facilitate the development of that city. That's the submission I wanted to make.
Thank you, Michael, for that. And yeah, quite big valid questions raised there. And certainly they will be heard and picked up by people that can actually act around them. And Joyce, I want to hear from you. You see, again, as we talk about urbanization, the other thing that comes up is when you walk around Kampala, the kind of activity that is supposed to be undertaken by these city authorities is you go to the streets and garbage is everywhere. When you come to security, the crime rates continue going higher. The more we get this urbanization, the rates of unemployment, and these are things that come with, of course, the population and the concentration of people in one area. We're looking through, and I understand you a lawyer. How can some of these challenges that emerge with urbanization be mitigated in our societies so that we're able to live a healthy and secure life?
We're having cases here. We have people sweeping the roads every morning, at least when you move in the streets of Kampala, you'll see someone sweeping on the roads, be it the pavers, making it clean. But by evening, it is probably worse than how it was in the morning. That also comes into how are we involving the society in it. Let's start with the garbage management. Let's train our society to know how best to manage the garbages at source. When you probably got something. At some point we had a policy that was passed about having trash cans in cars. I don't know where that ended.
Mm.
Let's get back to the society. Let's include the community. Let's train them. It is hard, it will take time, but it starts from one person knowing what to do. It starts from one person, and before you know it, the rest are going to continue. We have trash cans placed in the city centers. You might find it's even 50 meters from the next one. But someone will probably drink water, find it very comfortably dropping their rubbish on the road. The trash can is right next to them. But then we've also had situations where we have these trash cans, but it's taking days for it to be emptied. So the rubbish that is already in them has overflowed into the street. So however much you sweep, you still have the same rubbish coming back into the streets. Let's get back to our citizens. We talk to them. I think that is one of the challenges we have with graduating a place to a certain level when you've not yet you didn't gradually take the place from P1, P2, P3 stages of the development for it to become a city. You just gave it a city status. Now you're trying to make it meet its status by force. let's get back to the society. We train them. These are our streets. This is our what we have the good roads. We have the trash cans. You tell them, no, you can't what? Put the trash cans here. We get to involve the society in these things. As for the insecurities, there are still streets in Kampala that still don't have street lights. But even there are even still places that have the street lights, but they're still very insecure, even with the road cameras around and all that. Security-wise, security starts from a normal citizen of the country, members of the society. You have to be very cautious of who you're moving with, how you're moving with. I understand we have our freedom of movement, but then are you sure your movement is safe? If it is not safe, how best can you make it safe? If we get to know that this area is dark, it harbors criminals, how best can we make it? How can we destroy these harbors for criminals? Let's put lights there. If we put the lights, someone is fearing to be seen. So let's put let's put cameras around that area. So we should start with the small developments that will take a place to the level of a city that it is deserving. Small developments, one at a time, but like my sister said, most of these decisions are made politically. In 19, we had the cities being given the city statuses. Now we are in 2025. Next year, we are having elections. Before you know it, other cities have been given the city statuses without them actually deserving it. I wanted to read something. It's in the Local Government Act. It says, except for areas which are already gazetted before declaring an area to be a town, municipality, or city, the following requirements should generally exist. Other than the population, we have the area must have enough capacity to meet cost of service delivery. Service delivery goes across so many borders. Now, is Kampala on its own able to meet its cost of service delivery? Is it able to meet its is it able to meet collection of the waste, the garbage? Is it able to provide its own security? However little it is. Then we do it too. It must have offices. Then there must have been a master plan for land use. Like my sister said that she says in the prayer, you find people have constructed houses. They're so close to each other. They have destroyed the drainage system. Now that also narrows. If you want to construct a road, you're obviously going to narrow down the road, or better still, you're going to encroach on people's residences, which will need you'll have to compensate. If you go to construct a road and you're putting in lights to provide more security, to improve on the security in the area, you need more land to put in the trash cans that for people to manage their waste properly. Or if we resort to sorting of garbage at source, we start from training people in their homes when you're sorting out garbage. This is recyclable. Yeah, if you can recycle it, put it aside. If this one can be probably can act as manure. This one can probably you can use it at home. That is manage the waste. But if we have limited space where people have not planned for this development properly and the plan has not taken time, we're going to have limited land for use. The other is the presence of water. Yeah, all those other sources of the presence of water and all that. But it still goes back to the planning of the society. And how have you developed this society? Have you taken them through a gradual process? Have you trained the community? Are the people in that community actually already living in the status of a city, or they are still way back? Are the roads in that place large enough? Do they have security? Do they have the street lights to improve on the security that to prevent hijacking? Even within like the estates or the homes, are there enough probably security lights? Is there enough security personnel? How fast are our police responding to security concerns in the society? We need to take into account all that. We need to look at it from all angles. You involve the police. How fast are they responding to security concerns in the society? Do we have probably security lights? Are the neighbors, are the members of that community, members of that society, security conscious, they themselves, before we bring in the government to protect them? Are they trying in any way to protect themselves? For the garbage, are they at home? How are the homes, the families managing their garbages before we get into the city center? We need to work on all that. It starts from home. It starts from as small as one person living in a home. How are they managing their garbage? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joyce, for that, for those thoughts about that. And Doreen, we spoke about how the cities look like, and you see, we're in a generation of exposed people. People have access to internet and they can Google and see how Kigali looks like, how Nairobi looks like, how Magufuli city looks like. And when they make comparisons with what they have at home, that should be one issue that raises concern among the citizens. And I want to, first of all, hear from you. Do you think we do enough benchmarking in terms of determining how our product should look like? But two, the question of governance. When you look at Kampala here, for example, you have the structure of the Ministry of Kampala and its leadership and an entire staff. Then you have the executive director and her staff going down. You have the political wing of the Lord Mayor and his staff. You have the 5 divisions and their leadership. You have members of parliament, and that plays out even in the other cities when they get created. Then you have new offices being created. You have a new mayor somewhere, a new director physical planning somewhere. You have a new town clerk somewhere, and so on. And we keep on spending on these people as citizens. We pay them, we find them a vehicle and a driver and the fuel they use, and a lot of those resources. Are we able to sustain some of these expenditures going forward? And perhaps what should we do to make sure we manage some of these new emerging expenditures and have enough disposable income for development? Yes, Doreen.
For the first question about at least a bit of exposure and comparison, when you see your city or your cities, our urban centers, with what other countries have or have developed over the years, of course, there's a comparison which makes you feel a bit sad. But I think the biggest challenge that we as Ugandans have is the gap between knowledge and politics. Many people kind of have an understanding that politicians are in charge of doing. And I know the setup for Kampala City Authority is kind of complicated because there's a fully fledged political wing, which has its own council meetings, as well as an executive director who has her own technocrats. So when you add those two, of course, there's a bit of conflict and crisis here and there. But putting all things aside, I think there has been a benefit in that challenge. That when we want a few things to be done, we know that our mayor will always say, it wasn't my fault. You know, Elias Lukwago will always say it wasn't my fault. And then the ED will have to either, they will always be the ones to account for whatever has happened within Kampala. And I think this is something that can be copied around the countries, because this is something that we know is supposed to happen. For Mbale, let's have the political wing specifically do things with advocacy. And we know we do not educate people a lot about what the politicians are able to do and what the technocrats and their money or the government taxes and money can do. So it's a bit of education that is required. And when you, the second question, I know I probably forgot a bit, but I think I'll hit on it. So when we talk about our cities and what we want, I was writing something down and I said, for us, I think we should first of all self-identify as cities, or the ones that are already, the ones that have been promoted or the ones that are already there. Self-identify as a city. What are you good at? Serve your community. What exactly can you do? Because this whole garbage thing and resources, what is in Kampala is not in Jinja. What is in Jinja is not in Wakiso. What is in Wakiso is not in Fort Portal. So it's a matter of self-identifying. What exactly can you do as a region or as a city? And then you can capitalize on that. For example, I know Mbale has for a very long time been recognized as a food basket for the East. Most of the trade happens around Mbale. Things coming in from Kenya, from the further east, Soroti, all the Itesot tribes and districts all submit into Mbale. And then we have the coffee, and then we have all these other things. So capitalize on that. If it requires creating industries that can just make sure some of these things actually make sense and get some money out of it, then that's something that we could take on as a long haul. But in short, what is our governance standing for? Many times when you talk about the things that we could do for Uganda or how Uganda should be run, the governance question hits you hard because you cannot do anything alone. But then again, the moment you involve about 4 to 5 people, things crash because of the governance. Everybody's asking, what am I going to get out of it? So it's very challenging as a question itself, but also I think for this generation, and I am very glad this generation is waking up, and I believe that there is need for education in terms of what politicians are supposed to be doing, what the technical team is supposed to be doing, and if you step on the other person's toes, you're supposed to do this. So there should be a clear boundary on where exactly leadership is supposed to fall and where we put the accountability on the other hand. So we can always handle the security issues, the waste management, resources, of course, is a challenge everywhere. It just doesn't have to be even for cities, everywhere. Even companies are hustling for resources and all that. So that is an ongoing crisis for all organizations or any sort of set of groupings. But for the cities, especially infrastructure services and, economic growth, let's just have a bit of boundary where the technocrats can take over and do what they're supposed to do. And then the politicians, I think we should stick with advocacy. If the school is not there, please advocate for the school instead of the city, because you're not going to work for the city 1 term and after that you're gone, or 2 terms and you're gone. And then the technical team will remain with your issues. So I think we should just cross a line in between, let the technocrats do what they learned, like the district planner, Michael. I think he should do exactly what he was supposed to do. But then the challenges that limit him from doing exactly what he's supposed to do are coming from governance and mostly politics. So let's try to just cross a boundary, and I think we shall have a better Uganda. And for statuses of cities, please, I think we can just first keep what we have and learn from that.
All right. Thank you so much, Doreen, for that thought. And certainly, colleagues, we could talk more and more about the cities, but our time is very much fast spent, as you can see from your ends. And certainly, before we get out of here, let me see. I think we have about 5 minutes to be out of here. I will give a minute to each of you to give me a final remark about this particular topic. It could be a recommendation or another thought you thought could be important for this conversation, and certainly we shall be able to come to the end of our conversation here on Community Voices Uganda Civic Space TV. I'll start with you. Let me start with you, Joyce. Any final remark you'd want to send out there as regards our cities, and indeed maybe what you think can be done better, or how you think things are okay? Yes, Joyce.
Okay. So I do believe for us to have a better city, let's first let's help the different districts that we have grow into the city level before we can give it a city status. Let's help them develop. Let's help them get better infrastructure, plan better for the land and the resources that they have. If we're going to give them revenue, let's let the government provide the revenue and involve the community in developing a certain in the area according to what they need. Let's develop the areas, the villages, the cities. Let's develop them first before we give them the city status. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasant discussion on the show. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Joyce, for that, and thank you for joining us. Nasur, any final remarks for as regards this conversation?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity given to us to have a deliberation over such an important topic. My recommendation would be that all what you have discussed is centered under leadership and resource allocation. I would be of a view that as the residents, we also take collective efforts to spend wisely and be accountable to our people whom we lead. And government should also review the tax management, that once revenue is collected, let it be given back as it has been collected. And that's when we shall able be in a position to also make an accountability over what we have collected. And that will even motivate us more to collect more, knowing that it will also come back more and it will come in time to serve our people better. I want to extend greetings and the election in my city. I want to also give people an update that they are moving on well. And I think we are even about to come to an end of the session, and we know who are the flag bearers going to represent people at the division levels. Wish each and everyone a good day ahead. And thanks for listening and giving us a opportunity to share. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wanshi Nasur. And Michael, final remark.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a very wonderful session. When I was in South Korea doing my master's, some Korean professor was telling me, Michael, this is a very good presentation that you keep making. How I wish you implement this in your country. And I remember telling him that, yeah, I was also saying, I wish I had an opportunity to implement this in my country. One thing we can't run away from the fact that in this country, everything is driven on politics. So I want to call upon the political wing to ideally, be in charge of how you can work with us, the technical wing, to ensure that we move our cities. I have been asking myself, unfortunately, Mayor, is that Mbale City, the traffic lights that we have taken some time without working. And I've been asking myself, what is the problem? They have been off. Was it a deliberate decision to put them off? So you keep asking yourself, for you as a leader, when you come off, like, why are these traffic lights not working? Maybe you can wake up with the technical officers to do something. So we as people, as the politicians, as the planners, because it is actually by law, it is the councils of those cities that do the planning by law. For us, the technical officer, we just prepare for them to approve. So I want to say that for us to have good cities, we must strengthen financing. This is very important. Even if we talk day in and day out, if we don't have money, cities will not thrive. That's very important. And then also, let's try to have some sort of integrated planning. For example, when you talk about Kampala capital city, can we integrate our plans with Mukono, with Wakiso itself? Why? Because a bus that is setting off from Kampala is taking people as far as Wakiso. Just imagine if we had an independent lane to transport those from work, a bus that is not interrupted by any sort of traffic. Move to Wakiso, to move to Mukono within a short period of time. That is the train that I've introduced that actually trying to cap that. And many people are using these trains. So for us to have good cities, we must go beyond. We must go beyond. We must think big and ensure that we bring everyone on board. Thank you once again for an opportunity to share. And it's been a wonderful one. Thank you. You're a very good moderator, by the way.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, thank you so much for your thoughts and for being with us. And Doreen, your final remark.
My final remark is on the knowledge of people. I think people should understand why cities are created and what impact it has on their livelihood. They should also know that when a city is created, all their buildings will have to have a plan and will have to be approved. So people should have all the knowledge that is needed for them to make a decision to pressure government. So I think that education is very key. And if politicians led with that, people would understand exactly why they are asking for a seat. And also they will also know what will affect them having a city. In terms of taxes, I think we shall have less rebellion on tax payment if people accept to get a city with the consequences it comes with. The other thing is, which I think I will end with, is the biggest challenge. I said it before and I'm going to say it again. The biggest challenge that our cities, the ones that we have, are facing currently is the gap between the knowledge and the politics. Because in most cases, the moment we understand what politics stand for, then we shall also know what knowledge we can apply to that politics. So people should understand the knowledge first and then apply politics later. So that gap should be narrowed. And this platform is an amazing place where people can find such information. Cities have consequences, cities have impacts. People should demand for what they understand.
Thank you. People should appreciate the knowledge and apply the politics later. Doreen Bule, thank you so much for your time, for your thoughts, and making it here always on Community Voices Uganda. We appreciate that so much. Council Alobo Solomon Joyce, thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time to the conversation here on Civic Space TV. And indeed, Michael Mwenye, thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time for the conversation. And indeed, Wanchi Nasuru, thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time for the conversation. We appreciate all the thoughts you've shared. Indeed, look forward to seeing some of the recommendations, the ideas, the thoughts you've put across being picked up and implemented in the different areas of decision making in this beautiful country. Special thanks to the technical team and special thanks to our viewers here on Civic Space TV and Community Voices Uganda for always keeping with us and making sure you consume what we actually are able to produce. Thank you to all our partners that are with us on this journey. And right now we want to say that we promise to be with you, and from us, let it be a good day, good evening, and we look forward to having you next time.